Hey, it's Mrs. Smeckens, and we're ready for the second lesson in our new skills series. In the previous lesson, I introduced you to this idea of making an inference or inferring, if you're thinking of the verb form of this. And an inference uses both the reading voice and thinking voice, but it's different. It's bigger than just a thinking voice thought. In the previous lesson, we talked about this idea of you have to collect numerous clues. You have to think about them in several different ways in order to then, figure out something. And that new idea, that something is called an inference. In the previous lesson, we talked about how authors in more complex text stop just telling you everything and they expect us to do a little more of the work. Authors imply ideas and they're expecting that we can figure it out. And by figuring it out, that means we know how to make an inference. I've added to our anchor chart for this lesson this silhouette head, this outline of a head. No, it's not my head, all right? In fact, this whole concept comes from a teacher friend of mine, Mrs. Linder. This was her idea, and I think it's going to really help us figure out the process of inferring. I say process because there's not much process to see a detail, have a thought, see a detail, have a thought, see a detail, have a thought. And that's what we did in the last lesson. It was just a word here or there, I had a connection. Word here or there, that was it. What we're talking about when I say inference is being able to really capture, track, record multiple details. Ponder them, think about them, record what you think it might mean in order to then, bam, create the inference. Come up with the new big idea that the author never said. So when I say record, we're actually going to utilize this silhouette head to learn the process. And here's how it works. Remember, to make an inference, you got to have some text. So you're reading the text and you start to notice clues, details from the text, right? And that's your reading voice. So I just wrote the word detail in green, and you collect it out here, okay, outside the head, because you didn't think about them, right? I mean, you're not like making them up. You're just plucking them right out of the text, whether that's off a screen, out of a visual, out of a book. You're just collecting words and phrases. That's what we mean by a detail. Words, phrases, things you can actually see that you think, that might help me. I'm trying to figure out blah, 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 whatever the question is, and you need to collect details. And remember, an inference has to have multiple details. So this word or phrase might help. This might be a clue. Each of these details is spoken by the reading voice. But the details themselves do not answer the question. You don't read a passage, go into the text, and then get the answer. No, that's not an inference. An inference is implied. An inference is just kind of hinted at. It's the putting it together that makes it an inference. Otherwise, it would just be go get the answer. All right? So Mrs. Linder's silhouette head here is going to help us, because I think the hardest part of making an inference is the thinking about what all the details mean. I don't think it's hard for you to come up with which details might be helpful. In a passage, when you're trying to answer this question, which details might be helpful? Bloop, 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 bloop. I think you can name them pretty easily. The problem will be, now what do I do? What's the answer? That's what makes an inference hard. It's what happens inside your head. It's think about what they mean. Well, nothing's coming to me. I'm not having any thoughts. How do I have a thought? That's what I want to work on. The process of having a thought, of activating your thinking. And I'm going to give you a few secrets, okay? And one of them is when you're looking at the details, after you've collected them, okay, or highlighted them or whatever, then I want you to start to look for details that you say go together. Well, this, and this, these all go together because why? I mean, you put them together. If you start to see things that you think go together, why do you think they go together? Well, because they're all blah, blah, blah. Great. Write that down. In the middle of your head, write that down. Write it down. They all go together because what you're doing is you're starting to see patterns. Groupings, you're starting to see things that are similar. That's what I mean by pattern, not literal math pattern. But they kind of are going together. Now, everything you put together isn't going to necessarily because they're all related. They all have the same kind of thing. Maybe you see this detail and this detail, and you say, it makes me think about a time when it reminds me of, it's like when, and you're remembering a memory. Yeah, see, that could be how your thinking voice helps you. It starts to remember. You may not know a lot about this. You may not know the answer yet, the inference. But you're like, well, I see these, and it reminds me of, and you start to pull on some background knowledge. So this idea that your thinking voice can help you combine details, put them together, because you're seeing a connection of some kind, maybe based on personal experience or just something you know of. I've heard about this. I know other people who, I have a memory of this. I have some knowledge of this. Nobody feels super confident when they're putting details together. We don't. We're like, well, these go together because I'm thinking that language kind of, I'm wondering, maybe, That's how in the middle of the head feels. If it was just, well, I know, well, then it would be an answer, not an inference. The whole point of an inference is it's not obvious. I'm giving you ways that you might start to look at all these details and say, these kind of go together because they're all the same. These kind of go together because they remind me of, they all have a little, they're like when, let me give you one more. Sometimes you can look at details and you put them together because you say, well, this, maybe there's a third, maybe there's a fourth, maybe it's just those two. But you put them together and you say, okay, so now when this and this happen, then usually it means when these this is like the cause and this would be the effect. When you have this, when this happens, then usually this is happening. That idea of some kind of a relationship, a connection of some kind. When this happens, when you have this and this, you usually then have, and whatever you're thinking, it goes in the middle of the head. Your thinking goes in the middle of the head. Only author words go outside the head, all right? Anything you're like, maybe, I'm not sure. And you write down your maybes, I'm not sures. Don't worry about having the right answer. No, none of this is answer. Okay? This is all like, maybe it'll help me. I'm kind of trying, not really sure. Okay? That's totally normal. So let me put up relationships and this thinking stem. When you have this, you often have that. When this happens, often you have that too. But you see how I started with just a collection of details with the reading voice? But in order to have a thought, I had to move the details into little groupings. And whatever grouping, whatever reason you think they go together, write that reason down in the middle of the head. That's your thinking. It may not be right, but for right now, it's what you're thinking. Write it down. Okay? Then, to figure out what it all means, then you focus on just in the middle of the head. This thought, and this thought, and this thought. And it has me thinking that the answer is, and that, when you combine this thought, that putting together of thoughts based on details from the text, that's what an inference is. We're working on not so much what an inference is in this lesson, because we know it's a new idea, but it's how in the world do you have one? You have to collect details you think will help. You must put them together in little groupings. And whatever label you would put on the grouping, bam, goes in the middle of the head. Then you look at your groupings, your thoughts. Well, I'm thinking this, I'm thinking this, I'm thinking this. Bum, bum. There's my answer. Okay, let me show you this in action. Let me do this in action. And I'm going to put up a passage in a minute. It's just super short. And I'll have a question that is not answered in the text. It's about the text. It's an inference. But I need to kind of do this process with the text I'm about to show you. But before, I need space. Okay, and so I actually have a ginormous head right here. Here's my Mrs. Linder's silhouette head, okay? And so I'm going to collect green details out here, actual words from the passage I'm about to show you. And then you're going to see me put them together to try to figure out the inference. And I'll put the inference in the neck, all right? All right, so here we go. On your screen, I'll just read, okay? People crowd to enter the open door. They rush to find a seat. Many are left to stand when all the seats are taken. The vehicle jerks forward at a high velocity, causing the standers to lurch. They tighten their grip on the straps hanging from the ceiling. Although it's daytime, the view is nothing but blackness. Lights inside the vehicle keep it from being totally dark. All right, so I've read. Here's our question. Where are they? The people, the crowd of people, where are they? Okay, now, if you're already making the inference, here's what I want you to know. That's awesome. Your mind just did in 0.7 seconds what I'm going to get everybody else's mind to do. But I'm still going to ask this question because it's so not about the answer. You being able, some of you right now can, I know where they are. Wait a minute. I don't really care if you get the answer right if you can't tell me what details were most helpful. So let's start there, all of us. Let's start there. Mrs. Meckens going to look at this passage and she sees a crowd of people entering a door. Okay, so wherever we are, it's somewhere with a crowd, okay? And they enter and they are rushing to find a seat. You mean there's not enough seats for everybody? Wherever they're going, there's not enough seats for everybody. And some will have to stand. Wherever they're going, they're rushing. It's a crowd. There are some seats, but not enough. Then the third sentence says, the vehicle, where are they? Well, some kind of vehicle, that's a huge clue. But some kind of vehicle, I know the answer is going to be some kind of vehicle. It says the vehicle. Where are they? Well, the vehicle jerks forward at a high velocity, causing the standers to lurch. Okay, so whatever vehicle this is, it jerks forward. It's got a little pickup to it, doesn't it? Yeah, at a high velocity. All right, none of these are my words. These are all from the text. And text details are green. It's the reading voice, and they all go outside the head. This is what readers do. They first collect the details, the hints, the clues the author left, little breadcrumbs to try to figure out the answer. All right, so any breadcrumb you think is going to be helpful, I'm collecting it. All right, we'll keep going. They tighten their grip on the straps hanging from the ceiling. Straps from the ceiling. All right, I'll just move that over there. We'll keep going. Although it's daytime, the view is nothing but blackness. So it's daytime, but it's dark. It's like a riddle. What is this? Yeah, that's the whole point of an inference. You got to put it together. I know some of you have already figured it out. We got to know what details led you to it. Because on a test, having the right answer doesn't do you any good if you can't explain how you got it. So keep going. Look for the details. Last sentence, lights inside the vehicle keep it from being totally dark. Okay, so this vehicle with a crowd of people, some standing, some sitting, is in a outdoors, outside, out where it's dark, but inside there's lights. All right, so all I've done so far is read and collect relevant details, what details I think might help. So now what do I have to do? I have to do the grouping part. Okay, so watch me do the grouping. And remember, whoopsie, lost a sticky note. Once I start to move sticky notes that I think go together, these go together because this reminds me of, when I start to do that and I make a grouping, I have to label it. I have to label it with a thinking voice thought. Okay, so let me go ahead and start to move some of these. So I see a crowd, okay, and they're entering. Okay, well, let me just stop right there, because this idea of a crowd tells me that they're like, it's getting bigger, like they're waiting. They were waiting for the doors to enter, first sentence. Enter the open door. And so it's many people, they've been waiting until it was time for the doors to open. Okay. Okay. And then this idea that they rush to find a seat because, seriously, there's not enough seats. Okay, so this has me thinking, like, if it was a concert or a play, you like have a ticket and you get a seat. This is normal. So my first thought is, seriously, not enough seats? Where are we? Okay. So then I find out it's a vehicle. That was huge. I think that's important. Let me move this out of the way. Woo, Mrs. Smacking sticky notes aren't so sticky today. But this whole how it moves, it doesn't just go, it jerks forward. The idea that the standards are lurching. Okay, so not only in my thinking voice think, okay, this is going fast, I start to think, what vehicles do I know that jerk, move fast? Okay, so I'm thinking, well, rocket ship, a motorcycle, a jet ski would, right? Anybody in a car that guns it, right? You know about that. Okay, some kind of train might do that. When I'm starting to think I know the answer, I start to write those down. So it goes fast. That's what high velocity means. But I'm having a second related thought. I'm starting to guess what it might be. So I jot those down. Remember, yellow, thinking voice. Yellow goes inside the head. I'm putting these together. All right, let me keep going. And the idea that I'm having another thought here when it's this whole moving fast. And here's my thought. Not only am I thinking it could be some of these things, rocket ship, train, jet ski, some kind of vehicle, your thinking voice sometimes tells you what it's not. And one thing I'm thinking right now is, well, if you're allowed to stand, if you're standing when the vehicle is moving, then it's totally not a school bus because they don't let you stand. And a lot of city buses, this whole idea of you got to have a seat. You can't be, it's not safe. So it's normal to not have a seat and have to stand. Well, this is not a school bus. My thinking voice is telling me that. So I add that. Okay, so straps, remember that part? Okay, so they're gripping the straps, and that's immediately kind of got me questioning straps on the ceiling where they're holding on and they're gripping it. They're gripping, so they're holding on. Now, it might be because we're moving so fast. That totally makes sense. So I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. If we're going fast and we're standing, we better have something to balance us. So we're holding on. Okay. Now let's look at this daytime. It's daytime, but it's dark outside. What is that? What happened to the sun? Where are we? Okay. Now there's lights on the inside of the vehicle. Great. But why is it dark during the day? And I'm wondering, well, maybe there's a storm. You know how like a storm cloud will come and it's almost like the sun does go away and it gets real dark. So I'm jotting the word storm down. I'm also wondering, maybe we're in a cave. How can it be daytime, but maybe we're underground? Maybe we're in a tunnel, someplace where it is daytime, but it appears dark. Okay, so here I go. Now I'm going to put it all together, and I'm only going to look at the yellow. I've used the author clues. Now I got to do the detective work. Now I got to do the rest by myself. The question is, where are they? Well, I know it's a vehicle. It's a vehicle where there are not enough seats, that goes really fast, where if you're standing, you have to hold on. So I'm definitely thinking it's some kind of a train, it's some kind of a subway, but more specifically, this whole underground business, this darkness, this was big for me to know it's an underground subway, it's an underground train. I did it. That's the inference. I know some of you knew it right at the beginning, which is great. But if you would have hollered out the answer, my next question would have been, which details were most helpful? And why were they so helpful? And so you might have said, well, when it said this, why was it so helpful? Because it had me thinking this. You might have said, well, when it said this, that was the detail most helpful. Why is it most helpful? Because it made me think of this. You've got to know not just what details are helpful, but why they're helpful. And for some of us, we collect the details to put them together to get the inference. Sometimes, based on the text and your background knowledge and the question, you read it and it just pops in your head. You just know. But you still have to be able to identify what text details support that, right? Don't we call that evidence? And why do you think they support? Explain, right? Aren't your teachers always asking you to explain? But bam, that's the yellow, people. It's your thinking. Explain your thinking. Okay, we're going to do another one. We're going to do another one super fast here. Okay, I'll put the passage up. Oh, wait, before I put the passage up, we're going to do another one. We're going to do the same process, but I got to clear off all my sticky notes because you do understand if we read a new text, the text details will be different. So the next text won't have these kinds of words and details in it. And so this thinking won't be helpful, and that will not be the inference. So while you read the passage on the screen, give me just a second to rip all these sticky notes off, and we'll be ready to collect and have you guys try it next. All right? So read your screen. Okay. She stood outside her front porch for several minutes digging through her backpack. After that, she walked slowly around her house, twice. Returning to the porch, she emptied her backpack, shaking each item individually. Sitting down on the front steps, she pulled out her phone, made several calls, and sent several texts. What we're trying to figure out is what in the heavens is her problem? What is she doing? Okay, now you may know the answer, which is great. And what you don't realize is that the only way you know the answer is because your brain heard certain clues, put them together, knew what they meant to get to the answer. You are doing the process. I'm on purpose using easy passages, you guys. On purpose. Because anybody can answer these questions when the text is easy and the clues are obvious. But what if you're reading some Shakespeare or something? What if you're reading something about some nonfiction topic you can't even pronounce? What if you barely understand the question, let alone what you just read? Now, all of a sudden, this process is going to be huge. So this lesson isn't about, can you read hard text and make an inference? No, this lesson is about, can you just start to learn how to go back into the text to get details, start to put them together, label them. Why do they go together? Think about those and make an inference. This lesson's about the process, all right? Then we'll up the difficulty of the text. Let's just get this process figured out. Okay, so now let's start with not the answer, all right? Which details might help you? Which details do you think might be clues as to her problem? Take a minute and just holler out the ones that you would be highlighting, marking, circling, or writing on sticky notes. Okay, I'm going to guess some of you said, well, her problem has something to do with the fact she's outside. Okay, that she is looking, digging. The word was digging in her backpack. She walked around her house. This is her house. She stood outside of her front porch. She walked slowly around her house. What else? What else tells you what her problem is? How did you know what her problem was if you already know? Emptied her backpack. She's shaking the items, right? Can you picture it? All right. She then sits down on the front step. She starts to make a lot of phone calls and sends several texts. Okay, so the question is, what is her problem? What is going on with this female? Okay, now, again, even if you know the answer, the big pink neck inference, I don't care. It's not about the answer. It's about the process. So I want you to tell me which details you would put together and why. Why would you put them together? What does digging, what does that mean to you? If someone's digging around in their backpack, what does that tell you? Digging, 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 moving stuff around, digging, digging, digging. What is it? Yeah, she's looking for something, isn't she? So something she's looking for. Her problem has something to do with her own house front porch and the fact that she's looking for something. Already, we're starting to put things together. Okay, let's see what else. What else? What about this idea of walking around her house? Do you walk around your own house? Why would you ever do that? And why would you do it twice? Inspecting. She's checking things out. Okay, she might do it twice because whatever she's doing, she's trying to be real thorough. Okay, what else? What else do you see that goes? Well, how about this? She dug in her backpack, so we know she's maybe looking for something. But she goes back to her backpack again. Now she empties it. Now she starts shaking everything. Well, she already did. She already looked in it. She already dug around. What? She's looking again. We're back to that careful, thorough checking. When you can't find something and you're looking and then you look again, how do you start to feel? Panicked, anxious, nervous. Okay, these are all my thoughts. I don't know. I'm not sure, but whatever her problem is, she is desperately looking for something. She's starting to feel panicked. She's doing it more than once, okay? And then when she's all done, she sits down on the front step. Her own house, she never goes in. She sits down outside her own house. How often are you doing that? Seriously? Really? Not very often? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Because she can't get in? She can't get in? Tell me more. Well, does that have anything to do with the fact that she made many phone calls and sent many texts? So she can't get in. What's your point? Oh, she's trying to get a hold of someone, trying to talk to someone. Who would be the someone she's calling? Her best friend? Is she calling the kid she babysits? Who's she calling? Why is she calling him? For a key. What's her problem? Locked out of the house, baby. You just did it. But bam, there it is. In this lesson, what we're working to do is to really master the process of making an inference. We're good at reading voice, thinking voice, reading voice, thinking voice, reading voice, but that's just surface thoughts, all right? I'm telling you right now, inferential questions are deep. And they require you to put minute clues together and really think about them. And so as the text gets harder and the questions get harder, you better have a process to fall back on. That's what this lesson was all about. Okay, if you were in Mrs. Smecken's class, here would be your assignment. On the next slide of the screen is a silhouette head. So you can either print it off, or you can put up a piece of paper and trace it, or you could just grab a piece of paper and draw your version of a head, okay? I'm going to guess it's going to look like an alien, but I don't really care. But I want you to have 3 heads. So print it 3 times, draw it 3 times, 3 of them. Why? Because you're going to read 3 passages. What are they doing? What is happening? And what is her problem? You're going to read all 3 passages, and I so don't care about the answer. I'm telling you right now, the answer is easy. It's easy, you guys. I on purpose made it easy. What I want are what are the details? What are the details that helped you? You can even write down the answer. I don't care. Write it down first. But what you have to know is that your brain did it. Your brain quickly noticed certain words. Which words? I want to know which words. And then why did you think they go together? What's in the middle of the head? What you're thinking? Oh, that's how you got there. Good. then do the next one and the next one. If you were in Mrs. Smecken's class, you would be doing those 3 passages and you would be showing your inference process on the silhouette head. But your teacher might have a better idea.